Vampires, Ghosts, and Cosmic Evil. My favorite horror books of the year covers a lot of ground. Please join the conversation. Hey everybody, welcome to D3 Reads. It's Eric and happy Halloween. October 31st, spooky season is peaking right now and it has gone fast. Matter of fact, a little too fast because I am not finished with my spooky season TBR. I had a few books that I was trying to get done, or at least make some real inroads into before Halloween, and I just haven't gotten there. And part of the reason is because one of the books has drawn me in to the point that I am neglecting everything else. And this book I'm going to cover in today's video because I figured, well, if I'm not going to be able to give you a good solid book review for all the books on my spooky season TBR, what I'm going to do is highlight the 4 best horror books I have read in 2025. So they're not books necessarily that were published in 2025, but they are recent publications and they are ones that I read this year. Now, I've read a lot of horror. Quite a few horror videos since January. I've had some that were not so good, didn't really do it for me. I've had some that I thought were solid, really engaging in a variety of ways, but wouldn't be the ones I would suggest to someone if you were going to ask for a recommendation. And then there's some that just absolutely captivated me, grabbed my attention and my imagination, and those are the ones that I am going to highlight for you today. So with that said, I am going to start off with, I got 4 books, but I've only got 3 authors because one author wrote 2 of the books that we're going to cover. This first one is the one that I'm reading now, and it's the one that's pulled my attention all October, which is The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. This book, I've made no secret that I love a good vampire story, and this book is Stephen Graham Jones' take on the vampire. But he does it by blending it into this Native American mythology that is just so fascinating. I haven't been able to put it down. So because of that, I've had to put aside this other book, Joe Hill's Nosferatu, even though that is really good, but I just have wanted to get to the end of this as quickly as I can because it's really a good, mesmerizing book. So far, I'm almost halfway through it, and what I like about it is it comes across to me as a Native American history version of Interview with a Vampire. The book takes place, you're introduced to a descendant of a person who who lived in the American Midwest period, early West period, excuse me, and really pretty quickly you dive into these letters, to this diary that this minister wrote of his experience before he disappeared. No one knows what happened to him, at least not so far. And it's essentially like the interviewer in Interview with the Vampire, in that he's writing about his experiences, engagement, his interactions with a man who quite clearly is one of the undead, at least he claims to be. It's familiar in that it kind of follows in the footsteps of Anne Rice's classic vampire book. But it's got this freshness that Stephen Graham Jones brings to his writing. And one of the things I really like about it is, I mentioned in my last video and my other videos where I've talked about vampire literature, that I like my vampires to be evil. I don't like them to be humans who just have kind of like an evil bent. But this, like the Vampire Lestat in Interview with the Vampire, it's kind of carving out an exception to that rule, because the vampire that you're learning about in this, an Indian who calls himself Goodstab, he is obviously tormented by the curse of his vampirism, and you're being given glimpses into how his transformation affected him. But what I'm loving about it is that transformation seems, at least right now, it doesn't seem to be some just kind of allegory for sex or power or what have you. It seems he takes it as a punishment for sins that he believes he's committed. And so this vampirism is raw and elemental and so very insidious. So I'm really enjoying this book. I'm just like I say, I've put all my other books aside so I can get through to this one because I'm liking it so much, and I'm willing to say that so far this has gone straight to the top of my best horror books I've read in 2025. So still enjoying this. I'm going to give you a full book review here, hopefully in a week or two, of Stephen Graham Jones' The Buffalo Hunter. Now, the other book I'm going to go ahead and put up there is also Stephen Graham Jones, and that was The Only Good Indians. This one, rather than vampires, is more of a ghost story, but like The Buffalo Hunter, it takes this idea of ghosts and vengeance and unfinished business to a different level. It becomes more elemental, and it becomes something that is just really fresh, a really fresh take on the whole haunting kind of storyline. In this, you get the perspective of multiple characters who, in their youth, as young men, who wound up doing something very bad, and now they're being punished for it by being haunted by the ghosts of the event that took place. And I don't want to go too far into the various details of what happened, because even though it's not necessarily a spoiler, I like how Stephen Graham Jones unveiled what they did and how they did it and the ramifications of it. So The Only Good Indians is a ghost story, but as I said in a couple of videos now, I think that you can make the case that it's got one foot in the world of cosmic horror, because cosmic horror tends to be a type of manifestation or evil that simply is so great, so powerful that humanity and your place in creation, if you will, in existence, is so minimal that you feel overwhelmed and horrified by it. And it's got very little to do with the nature of human sins and our various needs and wants and that kind of thing. So it's not cosmic horror in that the characters are very specifically being punished because of what they're doing. So the supernatural forces that they're dealing with are very much concerned with their actions. However, because of, again, use the word elemental nature, that it's like the natural world has a role to play in the paranormal here. So I really enjoyed this. Was one of my favorite books I had read earlier in the year, and as we're wrapping up spooky season and getting into late fall, or getting into fall, and then ultimately winter, so far this has definitely made my top list of favorite horror for 2025. So Stephen Graham Jones, 2 spots on my best of list for 2025 horror so far. Oh, and I'm not alone, actually. I was on Blue Sky, and I noticed that John Scalzi had shared a link to Esquire's best books of 2025 so far. I've only read one of them, and the one I had read was Stephen Graham Jones' The Buffalo Hunter. Number 3 is a book that I reviewed early this year, in January, actually. I kind of cheated because I started reading it in December, and I was trying to get a running start on a collection of Gothic horror books that I wanted to publish in January or February, and that's Mexican Gothic. Now, Mexican Gothic was a book I learned about, actually, as I was trying to categorize some of the books I wanted to review. I started looking at Goodreads' best Gothic horror, and Mexican Gothic shows up very high on those lists. So I was intrigued, and I was wanting to read a new author, one I hadn't read before, and so I grabbed a copy of it from the local library, and it was just enthralling. Now, the story, I think, is set up like very much a traditional or classic kind of Gothic horror story. The main character is a young woman named Noemi, who is drawn into this Gothic residence castle in somewhere in this rural area of Mexico. This is set in the 1950s, so you don't have cell phones and all that kind of thing. But basically, I think it was her cousin who had married this guy who kind of came out of nowhere and who spirited her away out into the middle of nowhere. And her father, Noemi's father, is worried that she's been taken advantage of and she's been duped into marrying into a poor family, and he's just trying to take advantage of her and her family's wealth. So he sends his daughter, who is a college student, down to investigate at the manor that her cousin now lives in. She finds out quickly that there's something very sinister going on in the manor called High Place, where her cousin now resides. The horror, actually, there's a good argument to be made that there's a cosmic horror element here too, because the strange family that her cousin Catalina, I think her name is, married into, they're obviously into something extremely sinister, extremely evil. But you find out as you go through that they're tapping into forces that couldn't care less about their own machinations and their own plots and that kind of thing. But the story just pulled me in. I really enjoyed the character development, plus the way that Sylvia Moreno-Garcia, the author of the book, her way with words is just, it's poetic, and she does a really good job of spinning the tale. So Mexican Gothic, published in 2020, which was the same year as The Only Good Indians, actually. Definitely a good book, one of my favorite horror reads of the year, and highly recommended as well. And finally, we have The House of Bone and Rain by Gabino Iglesias. This was the first book of Iglesias that I had read, and it was really, really good. The setup for this is kind of like a supernatural Stand By Me, right? You got these four boys who grow up in Puerto Rico, and they have learned to live with high crime, they've learned to live with poverty, and they've learned to live with just the threat the weather poses to Puerto Rico, meaning hurricanes. They know that when hurricanes come through, bad things happen. You lose power, and just things get really rough. Well, the setup for this is a huge hurricane is heading into Puerto Rico, and they're all bracing for it. However, before this happens, one of the four friends, his mother, gets murdered. Now you find out that his mother was involved in some pretty shady stuff, and so she was kind of caught in the middle of something that was not very seemly. However, that really doesn't matter. Fact is that one of these friends, his mother was murdered, and he's going to get revenge, and the other brothers, or the other friends, are essentially brothers, and they promise and they swear to help get revenge on whoever it was that killed the friend's mother. However, they find out that it goes deep, and the person who actually pulled the trigger works for a notorious crime boss that you just do not cross. So you've got a crime story going on, a gangster story that's filled with violence, and this book is brutal. I actually felt this was the most jarring of the books I'd read. The violence was pretty intense, but then you overlay that with the supernatural element of the storm moving in, and it's just churning up these spirits that affect everything that's going on, and you find out that some of the forces on the island are allied with some pretty nefarious things. Now, I really enjoyed the book. Gabe is your main character, and I really sympathize with him on so many different levels. But as you get towards the climax, and I've said this before, you may or may not like the resolution of this book. I did. But I think you have to be a certain type of horror fan in order to truly, truly like it. Now, I don't mean that in a hipster sort of you don't get it sort of way. I just mean you're either going to like it or you're not. And you have to be a fan of a certain type of horror. And that's kind of all I'm going to say here with that. I don't want to spoil it for you, but I enjoyed it. The book was solid. It was an emotionally exhausting read because, like I said, it's got some pretty intense scenes in there. But that's it, guys. Those are my favorite 4 horror books that I have read so far this year. I think I'm moving on to military science fiction and military fantasy and a couple other odds and ends here throughout the next couple of weeks and towards the end of the year. And then I'll do my yearly summary. But let me know, what are some of the best horror books you've read this year? I would love to be able to add them to my next year's TBR. Thanks so much for joining, everybody. Hope you had a great spooky season. If you have not yet, please like and subscribe, share this video, and thanks so much. We'll see you next time.